The Teldar High Command Vessel *, Eternal Light *, drifted quietly at the edge of the Cygnus expanse. Admiral Do-yun stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, compound eyes fixed on the main view screen. The darkness of space stretched before them, broken only by distant stars and the strange object that had triggered their sensors 3 hours earlier. Unknown vessel still maintaining position, Admiral, reported Officer Ju from her station. Her skin shimmered with anxiety, the natural blue glow of her species dimming slightly as she worked. No response to our hails across any frequency. Do-yun clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. In 30 cycles of service to the Confederation, he had overseen first contact with 7 new species. All had followed predictable patterns. All had responded to standard communication protocols. This silence was unusual. "Magnify image," he ordered. The main screen zoomed in on the vessel. It was unlike anything in their extensive databases, angular and dark, with what appeared to be primitive chemical thrusters. Its hull bore no decorative elements, no status markings, none of the typical signs of a civilization proud of its achievements in space travel. Yet something about it made Do-yun's scales tingle with unease. "Life signs?" he asked. Officer Ki-yun, the vessel's chief science officer, studied his readouts with all 3 of his eyes. "Inconclusive, Admiral. The hull material is blocking our bioscanners. We're detecting energy signatures consistent with an active power source, but nothing that suggests advanced warp technology." The bridge fell silent. The 5 officers present, representing 3 of the 5 species that formed the Teldar Confederation, exchanged glances. "Your assessment, Sub-Commander?" Do-yun asked his second-in-command. Sub-Commander Jiho's crystalline form shimmered as he processed the question. "The vessel appears primitive, yet it arrived without using any known jump gates. This suggests either unknown technology or deliberate deception." Do-yun nodded. Jiho had always been cautious, a trait that had saved their lives more than once. "We have our orders," Do-yun finally said. "The High Council wants information on all vessels entering this sector. We cannot return without fulfilling our mission." He straightened his ceremonial collar. "Send the diplomatic shuttle. Standard first contact protocols." "Admiral," Jiho began, "perhaps we should." "The Council's orders are clear," Do-yun interrupted. "Prepare the shuttle." Minutes later, the small diplomatic vessel detached from the Eternal Light *. It was designed specifically for first contact scenarios. Unarmed but heavily shielded, its exterior covered in mathematical sequences and peaceful imagery that most spacefaring species would recognize as non-threatening. "Shuttle approaching target vessel," reported Officer Ju. Still no response to hails. Do-yun watched the small shuttle grow closer to the mysterious ship. As the distance closed to 1,000 units, something unexpected happened. "Energy spike," shouted Ki-yun. "The shuttle's translation matrix is experiencing interference." On the screen, the shuttle's automated defense systems activated, a standard precaution when unknown energy signatures were detected. A harmless warning shot flashed across the void, designed only to establish a safe perimeter until communications could be established. What happened next occurred so quickly that the bridge crew barely had time to react. The dark vessel came alive. What had appeared to be decorative elements on its hull suddenly glowed with blue-white energy. Precision beams, so focused they were nearly invisible until impact, sliced through the shuttle's shields as if they weren't there. "Shuttle taking damage," Ju cried out. "Shields down to 12%. "Recall immediately," ordered Do-yun. Full defensive posture. Before the shuttle could respond, another volley from the unknown vessel struck it, but with surgical precision. The beams targeted only the shuttle's propulsion systems, leaving life support intact. "They've disabled the shuttle, but not destroyed it," Ki-yun reported, his voice filled with surprise. "The crew is alive." "Target that vessel," Do-yun commanded. "Charge main." "Admiral," Ju interrupted, her voice trembling. "The unknown vessel is now targeting us. Energy readings indicate weapons lock on our propulsion systems as well. Shields to maximum, Do-hyun ordered. Admiral, Ju-woo whispered. We're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. Do-hyun felt his heart rate increase. On screen, the view screen shifted, and for the first time, the Teldar crew saw the occupants of the mysterious vessel. A bipedal figure stood in what appeared to be a command center. The being wore no ceremonial garments, just a simple gray uniform with minimal markings of rank. Its skin was a pale color, with a small amount of darker fur on the top of its head. 2 eyes, a protruding nasal organ, and a small mouth completed its strange appearance. When it spoke, the translation matrix took a moment to process the unknown language. This is Captain Tahoe of the UES Dauntless, Human Confederation. You have fired upon a diplomatic vessel. Prepare to be boarded. The bridge erupted in protest. We fired a standard warning shot. Sub-Commander Jiho objected. Our shuttle was on a peaceful approach, added Kian. Do-hyun raised a hand for silence. I am Admiral Do-hyun of the Teldar High Command Vessel Eternal Light *. There has been a misunderstanding. Our shuttle's defense systems automatically fired a warning shot when it detected unusual energy from your vessel. It was not an act of aggression. The human's expression didn't change. Our scanners detected your weapons charging before any energy signature was emitted from our ship. Your warning shot was fired unprovoked. Do-hyun turned to Kian, who quickly checked his readings. It's possible, the science officer admitted quietly. Their ship design masked their energy signatures. Our systems may have misinterpreted standard power fluctuations as scanning attempts. The human continued. We have disabled your shuttle and targeted your main vessel's propulsion to prevent further hostile action. We have not harmed your crew. This shows our restraint and peaceful intentions, despite your unprovoked attack. Do-hyun felt the situation slipping from his control. We did not intend hostility. We were following first contact protocols. A curious protocol that begins with weapons fire, the human replied coldly. We will board your vessel to ensure no further misunderstandings occur. You will power down your weapon systems immediately. Board our vessel, Jiho gasped. That violates all interspecies contact laws. The human's expression hardened. Those are your laws, not ours. We have our own protocols for when we are fired upon. The human gestured to someone off-screen. We're sending a boarding party. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. Dauntless out. The screen went dark. Admiral, what do we do? Asked Ju-woo, her skin now pulsing with alarm patterns. Do-hyun stared at the view screen, where the dark human vessel now seemed to loom larger than before. In 30 cycles of service, he had never encountered a species that reacted this way to standard protocols. These humans had responded to a warning shot not with destruction, but with precise disabling strikes. They could have destroyed both the shuttle and the Eternal Light if they wanted to. Instead, they had shown remarkable restraint. That made them more dangerous, not less. Power down weapons systems, Do-hyun ordered finally. Alert the crew that we will be receiving visitors. He straightened his uniform and send an emergency transmission to High Command. First contact with species self-identified as humans has been established. Classification recommended. Extremely dangerous. As the crew rushed to comply, Do-hyun watched the small shuttle launch from the human vessel. It was just as dark and angular as its mothership, and it moved with a confidence that sent a chill through all 4 of his hearts. Word spread quickly through the 5 systems of the Teldar Confederation. The incident at the edge of the Cygnus expanse was now the main topic in every government hall, military base, and public gathering place. Rumors multiplied faster than facts. Some said the aliens had destroyed an entire Teldar fleet. Others claimed they were shapeshifters who could pass through solid walls. High Commander Mayun sat at the head of the Grand Council table, her slender blue fingers tapping impatiently as the reports were delivered. Her 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation among her people, the Lysani, the founding species of the Confederation. One ship, she finally said, interrupting the nervous military officer mid-sentence. You've called this emergency session because of one ship. She stood up, her ceremonial robes flowing around her tall frame. The 20 council members, 4 representatives from each of the 5 Confederation species, watched her with varying degrees of concern. The Eternal Light is our most advanced scout vessel, continued the military officer, a stocky Greneth named Commander Dongme. Admiral Doyun is one of our most experienced. Mayan dismissed his words with a wave of her elegant hand. Admiral Doyun overreacted to a single vessel of unknown origin. This happens every cycle. New species emerge from their home systems, make bold claims, and then learn their place in the galactic order. Intelligence Officer Hanjin, who had been standing quietly in the corner of the chamber, stepped forward. As a Mekteri, his gray skin and 4 arms made him stand out among the predominantly blue Lysani council members. High Commander, with respect, the scan data from the Eternal Light shows some concerning inconsistencies, Hanjin said, his voice soft but firm. The human vessel's weapons technology is far beyond what their hull design suggests. Their response was measured, precise. They could have destroyed our ships but chose not to. Counselor Youngmi, another Lysani, scoffed. Are we to be frightened by mercy? Perhaps they simply knew they couldn't defeat a Confederation vessel and limited their response accordingly. Or perhaps, Hanjin countered, they wanted to demonstrate their capabilities without triggering a full-scale war. The chamber fell silent. High Commander Mayun narrowed her eyes at Hanjin. You believe these humans pose a genuine threat? I believe we should approach with caution until we know more, Hanjin replied. The data suggests. His words were cut short as the chamber's emergency alert system activated. Red lights pulsed along the walls. The central holographic display flickered and changed to show a real-time strategic map of Confederation space. Multiple unknown signals detected at the edge of the Proxima system, announced the automated system. Commander Donghe rushed to the display controls. Bring up visual feed from the defense platforms. The holographic image shifted to show the blackness of space near Proxima IV, the outermost planet in the system. At first, there was nothing unusual. Then, one by one, what looked like tears in the fabric of space appeared. Not the familiar blue swirls of hyperspace jumps that the Confederation used, but actual rips in the darkness, edged with red energy. From each tear emerged a ship, dark, angular vessels like the one Admiral Doyun had encountered, but larger, much larger. Count 20 vessels, reported Commander Donghe, his voice tight. Largest appears to be 3 kilometers in length. Impossible, whispered Counselor Youngmi. No ship can be that large and still maneuver effectively. Yet the massive vessels moved with surprising grace, forming a precise formation as they emerge. The smaller ships, each still larger than the Confederation's heaviest cruisers, took positions around the largest vessel. We are receiving a transmission, announced Commander Donghe. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. Put it through, ordered High Commander Mayan, returning to her seat at the head of the table. The holographic display changed again. Now it showed a command center unlike any the Confederation officials had seen. Instead of the bright, ornate designs they favored, this room was functional, almost sparse. At its center stood a human female, distinguished from the male they had seen earlier by slightly different body proportions and facial features. She wore the same simple gray uniform, though with more markings on the shoulders. I am Admiral Yunji of the Human Confederation Navy, she began without preamble. 3 days ago, one of our diplomatic vessels was fired upon by your ships in neutral space. This constitutes an act of war under human law. Mayan rose from her seat. I am High Commander Mayan of the Teldar Confederation. The incident you speak of was a misunderstanding. Your vessel failed to respond to standard hailing protocols. The human's expression didn't change. Our vessel was transmitting identification signals continuously. Your sensor technology simply failed to detect or interpret them correctly. This is not an acceptable excuse for weapons fire. Several council members began speaking at once, but Mayan silenced them with a gesture. "What is it you want, Admiral?" she asked. "Reparations," replied Admiral Gunji. "First, an official acknowledgement of responsibility for the unprovoked attack. Second, access to your star charts and transit routes as a show of good faith. Third, a delegation of your highest officials to meet with our diplomatic courts to establish formal relations." Murmurs of outrage filled the chamber. Mayan's 6 eyes blinked rapidly in sequence. "You come into our territory with warships and demand concessions," she said incredulously. "Perhaps you do not understand the situation. The Teldar Confederation spans 5 species and hundreds of worlds. Our combined fleet numbers over 1,000 ships. You have brought 20. For the first time, a slight change crossed the human admiral's face. The corners of her mouth turned upward slightly. "Our 20 against your 1,000. Those seem like acceptable odds to us," she said. Intelligence Officer Hanjin stepped closer to Mayan. "High Commander, I strongly advise caution. Their technology." Mayan silenced him with a sharp gesture. She turned back to the holographic image of Admiral Yunji. "You have 1 standard rotation to withdraw your vessels from Confederation space," she declared. "After that time, we will consider your presence an act of war and respond accordingly. We have 1,000 ships to your 20. Surrender now or be destroyed." For a moment, Admiral Yunji was silent. Then she nodded once, as if coming to a decision. "Very well," she said simply. "You were warned." The transmission ended abruptly. Commander Dongye turned to Mayan. "High Commander, should I order the fleet to mobilize?" "Of course," she replied. "All available ships. Show these humans the true might of the Confederation." As the commander hurried away to issue orders, Hanjin remained. "High Commander, please reconsider the scanned data." "Enough." Mayan's voice echoed in the chamber. "I've heard your concerns, Intelligence Officer. Now I need you to do your job. Find out everything you can about these humans, their homeworld, their technology, their weaknesses. We will crush this threat before it can grow." Hanjin bowed stiffly and left the chamber. In the corridor outside, he paused, looking back at the closed doors. The council members would be planning their victory celebration already, confident in their superior numbers. But Hanjin couldn't shake the memory of those 20 ships emerging from tiers in space itself, a technology completely unknown to the Confederation, and the calm confidence of the human admiral when faced with overwhelming odds. As he hurried toward the intelligence center, the cold feeling settled in his stomach. The Teldar Confederation had been the dominant power in this region of space for over 500 years. They had never lost a war. He wondered if that perfect record was about to come to an end. The Teldar fleet gathered at the edge of the Proxima system. Over 800 warships formed a massive crescent shape, their hulls gleaming in the light of the distant sun. This sacred battle formation had led the Confederation to victory for 2,000 years of military campaigns. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Glory *, his 4 arms clasped behind his back as he surveyed the tactical display. His scales shimmered with pride as he watched the final ships move into position. "Formation complete, Admiral," reported Captain Juno. "All ships report weapons charged and shields at maximum." Hyunwoo nodded, his compound eyes reflecting the blue glow of the displays. "And the humans?" "Still holding position, sir. 20 vessels, maintaining their original formation." Intelligence Officer Hanjin stood quietly at the rear of the bridge, watching the proceedings with growing unease. He had spent the past 12 hours analyzing what little data they had on the human ships, and none of it made sense. The energy readings were inconsistent, the hull compositions unknown, and their method of arrival, tearing holes in space itself, defied all known physics. "Admiral," he said finally, stepping forward, "I must again urge caution. Our sensors cannot penetrate their hull shielding. We don't know what weapons they possess. Admiral Hyunwoo turned, regarding Hanjin with a mixture of amusement and annoyance. "Intelligence officer, your concerns are noted. But look before you." He gestured to the tactical display. 800 of our finest ships against 20 of theirs. What possible advantage could they have? Unknown technology, sir. Their method of travel alone suggests. Enough. Hyunwoo cut him off. The High Commander has given her orders. The humans have refused to withdraw. They will learn the price of defying the Confederation. He turned to his communications officer. "Send to all ships. Commence attack on my mark." The Admiral paused, savoring the moment. Mark. The space between the fleets lit up as hundreds of energy weapons fired simultaneously. Beams of concentrated plasma, each capable of vaporizing a small moon, streaked across the void toward the human vessels. Tactical Officer Jinwoo watched intently, waiting for the satisfying sight of explosions. Instead, something impossible happened. The human vessels didn't evade. They didn't return fire. They simply absorbed the energy. Their dark hulls glowed briefly with the same blue-white color as the Teldar weapons, then returned to normal. "Direct hits confirmed," Jinwoo reported, confusion evident in his voice. "But no damage registered." "Impossible." Admiral Hyunwoo snapped. "Fire again. All weapons. Maximum power." The Teldar fleet fired a second volley, more powerful than the first. Once again, the human ships absorbed the energy, their hulls glowing brighter before returning to normal. And then they moved. The human vessels accelerated with impossible speed, breaking their formation and weaving between the Teldar ships before anyone could react. "They've breached our lines," shouted Captain Chono. "How did they move so fast?" "Incoming." Jinwoo's voice raised in alarm. "The humans are returning fire." But it wasn't energy weapons that the humans deployed. Instead, small objects launched from their ships, moving at incredible speeds toward the Teldar vessels. "Kinetic projectiles," Hanjin whispered, watching the tactical display with growing horror. "They're using physical ammunition." The Teldar fleet, with shields designed to stop energy weapons, had minimal defense against solid objects moving at near-light speeds. The projectiles struck with surgical precision, targeting propulsion systems and weapons arrays. "They're using our own weapons against the shields," cried Tactical Officer Jinwoo as the human counterattack intensified. "The energy we fired. They somehow stored it, and are channeling it back through their weapons." Admiral Hyunwoo gripped the command rail, his scales paling. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Return fire." But the human attack had only begun. Suddenly, every communication channel filled with noise. Navigation systems went dark. Targeting computers reset themselves continuously. "Electronic warfare," Hanjin explained, though no one was listening to him now. "They're attacking our systems directly." Then came the gravity distortion fields, invisible waves that warped space itself around the Teldar ships, making movement impossible and causing internal systems to fail as the laws of physics temporarily rewrote themselves. On the tactical display, Hyunwoo watched with disbelief as ship after ship reported critical systems failures. Not explosions, not destruction. Just neutralization. "How many ships still combat capable?" he demanded. Jinwoo's voice was barely audible. "None, Admiral. The entire fleet has been disabled." "That's not possible," Hyunwoo whispered. 800 ships, in less than 17 minutes. "Admiral," the communications officer interrupted, "we're being hailed by the human flagship." Hyunwoo stared blankly at the tactical display, where 800 proud Teldar warships now drifted powerless. He nodded numbly. The main screen activated to show Admiral Yunji on the bridge of her vessel. Unlike before, she was now wearing what appeared to be combat armor, sleek and functional. "Admiral Hyunwoo," she said, "your fleet has been neutralized. We have disabled your propulsion, weapons, and shields while maintaining life support systems. You are now boarded." "Boarded," Hyunwoo repeated. "That's impossible." You can't have boarding parties on all 800 ships. Admiral Yunji's expression remained neutral. We don't need to board all of them. Just yours. As if on cue, the bridge doors slid open. 6 humans entered, wearing mechanized exoskeletons that made them tower over even the tallest Teldar. Their armor was dark, with subtle blue lights running along the joints. They carried no visible weapons. How did you get aboard? Hyunwoo demanded. Our shields were designed to stop energy, not matter, one of the humans replied, his voice amplified by his suit. A simple enough weakness to exploit. Hanjin watched the humans with fascination rather than fear. They moved with practiced efficiency, securing the bridge without harming anyone. Their exoskeletons whirred softly as they moved, suggesting incredible strength contained within those frames. Your ship is now under our control, the lead human stated. Your crew will remain unharmed if they cooperate. Admiral Hyunwoo's scales flashed with patterns of rage and disbelief. You cannot hope to hold 800 ships. Even if you've disabled them temporarily, the Confederation will send more. We have thousands more vessels. The human tilted his head slightly. You misunderstand the situation. We don't need to hold your ships. We've already proven our point. From his position near the tactical station, Hanjin couldn't contain his curiosity. You could have destroyed us all, he said suddenly. Your weapons clearly have the capability. Yet you chose not to. Why? The lead human turned to look at Hanjin. Behind the transparent face shield, Hanjin could see a face not unlike the one they had seen in earlier transmissions. The human studied him for a moment. Because we're not monsters, he said simply. We don't destroy when we can disable. We don't kill when we can capture. He paused. And we certainly don't annihilate a civilization over a misunderstanding. Hanjin felt his heart's beat faster as understanding dawned. The incident at the border. You truly believe it was an accident? Whether it was or wasn't is no longer relevant, the human replied. What matters is what happens next. Another human approached Admiral Hyunwoo. You will accompany us to our flagship. Admiral Yunji wishes to discuss the terms of your surrender personally. Hyunwoo's scales flashed with patterns of defiance. I will do no such thing. Kill me if you must, but I will not surrender the Confederation. The humans exchanged glances. No one is asking for the surrender of your entire Confederation. The lead human explained. Just your fleet. The one that attacked us. The one we could have destroyed but chose to spare. Hanjin moved closer. Admiral, I believe it would be wise to accept their terms. They have shown both superior technology and restraint. These are not qualities of conquerors, but of potential allies. Allies? Hyunwoo spat the word. With primitives who got lucky. The lead human's suit whirred softly as he stepped forward. If we are primitives, what does that make you? We bypassed your shields, neutralized your weapons, disabled your engines, and boarded your flagship, all without killing a single Teldar. Silence fell over the bridge. Hanjin looked from Hyunwoo to the humans, and back again. The truth was undeniable. In just 17 minutes, everything the Teldar Confederation believed about their military superiority had been proven wrong. I will go, Hanjin said suddenly. If Admiral Hyunwoo refuses, I volunteer to accompany you to your flagship as a representative of the Teldar Confederation. The humans turned to look at him. And you are? One of them asked. Intelligence Officer Hanjin. I believe I understand what happened here today better than most, and I believe there is much we could learn from each other if we can move past this unfortunate beginning. The lead human nodded slowly. Very well. You will accompany us. He turned to Admiral Hyunwoo. Your officer shows wisdom. Perhaps you should consider following his example. As the humans prepared to leave with Hanjin, he took one last look at the tactical display. 800 proud Teldar warships, disabled but intact. Not a single vessel destroyed. Not a single life unnecessarily taken. They could have destroyed us all. He thought again as he followed the humans off the bridge. They chose not to. And that, more than any weapon they possessed, was what truly terrified him. Hanjin stepped through the airlock onto the human vessel. The gravity shifted slightly, heavier than Telder standard, making his forearms adjust their balance. The air smelled different too, cleaner, with none of the floral scents that Telder ships use to mask the recycled atmosphere. Two humans waited for him. One he recognized as Admiral Yunji from the earlier transmissions. The other was slightly shorter, with different facial features and body structure. Intelligence Officer Hanjin. Admiral Yunji said with a slight nod. Thank you for agreeing to serve as liaison. This is Commander Somi, who will be your guide and primary contact during your stay. Hanjin placed his upper right hand on his chest, a Telder greeting of respect. Thank you for not destroying our fleet, though I still don't understand why you didn't. Admiral Yunji's face remained neutral. Commander Somi will explain our approach to conflict. I must return to negotiations with your leadership. She turned and walked away, her movements efficient and purposeful. Commander Somi gestured down a corridor. This way, please. I'll show you to your quarters first, then give you a tour of the ship. The corridors were surprisingly simple. No decorations, no color beyond functional markings, nothing like the elaborate designs that adorned Telder vessels. Everything was practical, built for purpose rather than appearance. Your ship design is unexpected, Hanjin said carefully as they walked. Somi glanced at him. In what way? For a species with your obvious technological capabilities, your aesthetic choices are very minimal. A small expression that Hanjin couldn't interpret crossed Somi's face. You thought we were primitive because of our ship designs, she explained. That was intentional. We've learned it's advantageous to be underestimated. They stopped at a door that slid open to reveal a simple room. It contained what appeared to be sleeping quarters and basic amenities. These will be your quarters. We've adjusted the gravity and atmosphere to match Telder standards based on the data we gathered, Somi said. There's a communication panel if you need anything. Would you like to rest, or shall we continue the tour? Continue, please, Hanjin said quickly. His scientific curiosity was overwhelming any fatigue he felt. They walked through more corridors, passing humans who nodded politely but said nothing. Hanjin noticed they all wore similar clothing, practical uniforms with minimal decoration. How many humans are aboard this vessel? He asked. 2,843, Somi replied without hesitation. And your species, you call yourselves humans? Yes, though our formal name is Homo sapiens. We come from a planet called Earth, approximately 300 light-years from here. Hanjin's four eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of surprise. That's deep in unexplored space. How long has your species been capable of interstellar travel? Somi led him into a large room filled with displays and control stations. This is one of our tactical centers. And to answer your question, approximately 300 years by your time measurement. Hanjin stopped walking. 300 years. The Telder Confederation has been traveling between stars for over 2,000 years. How could you advance so quickly? Somi moved to a control panel and pressed several buttons. A large screen activated, showing images that made Hanjin's scales pale. These are historical archives from Earth, she explained. Our advancement was born of necessity. The screen showed scenes of warfare unlike anything Hanjin had ever witnessed. Humans fighting humans with increasingly destructive weapons, cities burning, machines of war evolving from primitive to sophisticated in what seemed like heartbeats. Your species fought itself? Hanjin asked, horrified. For most of our recorded history, Somi confirmed. Different nations, different ideologies, different resources. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times. The images changed to show a planet that seemed impossibly hostile. Massive storms, extreme temperature variations, predatory creatures that dwarfed the humans shown for scale. Earth is what you might call a death world. Somi continued. Higher gravity than most inhabited planets, extreme climate variations, thousands of species that could kill us. Our biology was shaped on a world that constantly tried to eliminate us. Hanjin watched, fascinated and disturbed. And the warfare drove our technological evolution at an exponential rate. Each conflict pushed advancement in weapons, medicine, communications, material science. Somi's voice remained clinical, detached. What might take another species centuries of peaceful research took us decades under the pressure of survival. The screen showed the progression of human ships, from early primitive vessels barely able to reach orbit to the sleek, powerful craft that now surrounded the Teldar fleet. These dark hulls, Hanjin said, pointing to their current vessels. They absorb energy weapons. Somi nodded. A technology developed 200 years ago. The energy is captured, converted, and can be redirected or used to power other systems. And the space tiers. Your method of arrival. We call it fold space technology. It's not actually tearing space, but rather folding it to create a temporary connection between 2 points. Hanjin felt overwhelmed. The technological implications were staggering. Why share this information with me? These are military secrets. Somi turned to face him directly. Because we want you to understand. We could have kept these capabilities hidden, destroyed your fleet when you attacked, and disappeared back into unexplored space. We chose a different approach. But why show mercy? Hanjin asked, the question that had been burning in his mind since the battle. With such power, such technology, you could conquer the entire Confederation. Commander Somi's expression softened slightly, the first real emotion Hanjin had seen from any human. Because true strength lies in knowing when not to use your power, she said simply. We could have destroyed your civilization. Instead, we hope to improve it. Hanjin's 4 arms shifted in confusion. Improve it? How? Why would you care about our civilization? Somi gestured for him to follow as they left the tactical center. They walked to a different part of the ship, eventually entering a large dome-shaped room. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars beyond and the disable Teldar fleet drifting silently. In our 300 years of space exploration, we've encountered 17 other intelligent species, Somi explained. Most were peaceful, some were not. We learned quickly that the galaxy is vast, but ultimately finite. Resources are limited. Space is limited. Future expansion is limited. So you seek to conquer others before they can threaten you? Hanjin asked. Somi shook her head. The opposite. We seek to build alliances, share technology, create mutual defense pacts. A network of civilizations working together is stronger than any single empire could ever be. But the Teldar Confederation already is a network of 5 species, Hanjin pointed out. Yes, but from our research, it's clear that you are the dominant partners, with the other 4 species essentially serving your interests. That's not true cooperation. Hanjin wanted to object, but found he couldn't. The Lysani had indeed maintained control over the Confederation since its founding. What do you propose, then? He asked finally. A true alliance, equal exchange of technology, knowledge, cultural understanding. Mutual defense against threats that neither of us have yet encountered. The galaxy is filled with wonders and terrors, Intelligence Officer Hanjin. We believe it's better to face them together. Hanjin looked at the stars visible through the dome, trying to process everything he'd learned. The humans were not what the Teldar had imagined, not primitive upstarts, not bloodthirsty conquerors. They were something far more complex. Your leaders may not agree, he said finally. 2,000 years of being the dominant power create certain expectations. Somi nodded. We understand. That's why we needed to demonstrate our capabilities first. Sometimes a show of force is necessary to open the door to peace. And if our leaders refuse, then we leave. We return to unexplored space. But we will have made our point. And we will have planted a seed in minds like yours. The knowledge that there are other approaches to interstellar relations than dominance and submission. Hanjin turned to look at Commander Somi directly. For the first time, he truly studied her. This alien creature from a death world, shaped by war, yet speaking of peace. "I believe you," he said finally, "and I will help convince my leaders. The Teldar Confederation has become complacent. Perhaps we need this challenge to grow." Somi smiled, a human expression that Hanjin was beginning to recognize. "That's why Admiral Yunji chose you as liaison. She said you were the only one watching the battle who seemed to be thinking rather than simply reacting." Hanjin's scales rippled with surprise. "She noticed me specifically. During a battle." "We notice everything, Intelligence Officer Hanjin. That's how we've survived this long." As they continued the tour of the human vessel, Hanjin felt a strange sensation he hadn't experienced in many cycles: hope. Not just for his own advancement, or for the glory of the Confederation, but for something larger. A future where species like his and these remarkable humans might face the unknown together. It would not be an easy path. The Teldar leadership would resist, clinging to their old ways. But as he looked at the disheveled fleet through the dome overhead, Hanjin knew the first step had already been taken. The battle that wasn't had changed everything. 6 cycles had passed since the day the humans had disabled 800 Teldar warships without destroying a single one. 6 cycles of dramatic change throughout the Confederation. Hanjin stood at the observation deck of Earth Orbital Platform Alpha, his 4 arms clasped behind his back as he watched ships from 17 formerly hostile civilizations approach the docking base. The massive structure orbited the human homeworld, a blue-green planet that looked deceptively peaceful from space, hiding the harsh conditions that had forged humanity. "Still hard to believe, isn't it?" asked a voice beside him. Hanjin turned to see Ambassador Minho, the official Teldar representative to Earth. Minho's scales shimmered with the formal diplomatic patterns of his office, the blue and gold catching the light from the nearby star. "I never imagined standing on the human homeworld as an ally," Minho admitted, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he watched a massive Greltak warship, once the terror of the Orient sector, gently maneuver toward a docking port. "And I certainly never imagined seeing the Greltak come in peace." "The Battle of Proxima changed everything," Hanjin said quietly. Indeed it had. The revelation of human technological capabilities had reshaped galactic politics entirely. At first, the Teldar High Command had refused to believe the reports. High Commander Mayan had even ordered a second fleet to rescue the first and punish the humans. But when videos of the 17-minute neutralization of 800 ships spread throughout Confederation space, reality became impossible to deny. The humans could have destroyed them all, and chose not to. What followed was not conquest, as many had feared, but partnership. The humans shared technologies that the Teldar would have taken centuries to develop on their own. Dyson energy collectors that harvested power directly from stars, planet-shaping technology that could make hostile worlds habitable in decades rather than millennia, and near-light transportation networks that reduced journey times between systems from months to days. "Look at that," Minho said, pointing to a ship approaching from the far side of the planet. "The Zinthi royal barge. Their queen hasn't left her homeworld in 4 centuries." The ornate vessel, covered in what appeared to be gold and precious gems, drifted majestically toward the station. Behind it flew escort ships from 3 different species, former enemies now serving together to protect the diplomatic mission. Hanjin nodded. "She's here for the treaty signing tomorrow. All 23 species in one room, agreeing to mutual defense and open borders." Unprecedented. A human approached them, one of the station officers judging by her uniform. "Intelligence Director Hanjin, Ambassador Minho," she said with a respectful nod. "Admiral Tahoe sends his compliments and asks if you would join him in the command center." Hanjin's title still felt strange to him. After his return from the human flagship 6 cycles ago, his insights into human technology and psychology had proven so valuable that he'd been promoted 3 times, eventually becoming the head of the entire Confederation Intelligence Service. Of course, Minho replied for both of them. "Is there news about tomorrow's ceremony?" The human officer's expression remained neutral. The Admiral will brief you fully, sir. They followed her through the sweeping corridors of the station. Unlike the stark military vessels Hanjin had first encountered, this diplomatic platform merged human efficiency with aesthetic touches from various allied species. Teldar light sculptures hung alongside human artwork and xanthi crystal formations. The command center was a large, circular room with viewing screens showing every approach to Earth. Admiral Tahoe stood at the center, the same human who had introduced himself 6 cycles ago on the bridge of the UES Dauntless. He looked virtually unchanged, a reminder of the longer human lifespan that had surprised many Teldar scientists. "Ah, my friends," Tahoe said, looking up from a holographic display. "Thank you for coming quickly." "Is there a problem with tomorrow's treaty signing?" Minho asked. Tahoe's expression grew serious. "We've received a transmission from deep space. Long-range sensors detected unknown signatures approaching from the Perseus arm." As if on cue, a human technician looked up from her station. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Deep Space Monitoring Outpost 7. Unknown signatures confirmed and closing. Estimated arrival in Earth space within 3 hours." Alarms began to sound, but Hanjin noticed something strange. There was no panic. Human and Teldar officers moved with practiced coordination, checking displays and issuing orders calmly. 6 cycles of joint training exercises had created a seamless integration of their forces. "Show me," Tahoe ordered. The main screen activated, displaying a section of space near the edge of the Perseus arm. At first, there was nothing visible except stars. Then, one by one, objects began to appear, ships unlike any Hanjin had seen before. They resembled massive crystalline structures, each one seemingly grown rather than built, with faceted surfaces that reflected starlight in prismatic patterns. "Magnify," Tahoe ordered. The image zoomed in on one of the vessels. It was enormous, at least 5 kilometers in length, and seemed to pulse with internal energy. "By the first ancestors," Minho whispered, his scales paling. "The Kyre Collective. I thought they were just legends." Hanjin felt his heart beating faster. The Kyre Collective was spoken of in ancient Teldar texts, a crystalline species said to have conquered 3 galaxies before disappearing 10,000 years ago. Most modern Teldar considered them mythological, a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked expansion. "Not legends," Tahoe said grimly. "Just very patient. Our deep space probes detected activity in the Perseus arm 2 years ago. We've been monitoring since then." "Why weren't we informed?" Minho demanded. "Because we needed to be certain," Tahoe replied. "And because we needed to be ready." He pressed a series of controls on the holographic display. "Activate Defense Protocol Omega." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, on the main screen, the space around the approaching crystalline ships changed. What had appeared to be empty vacuum suddenly rippled, like water disturbed by stones, and hundreds of human warships materialized, appearing out of nowhere as if by magic. "Cloaking technology," Hanjin breathed. "You've perfected it." "One of many projects we've been working on," Tahoe said with a slight smile. "The ships have been in position for 3 weeks, tracking their approach." Minho stared at the screen in shock. "How many vessels?" 500 of ours, 300 Teldar, 200 combined from our other allies," Tahoe replied. "All equipped with our latest integrated defense systems." On the screen, the human fleet moved with perfect coordination, forming a spherical barrier around the approaching Kyre vessels. No shots were fired, just a clear demonstration of position and strength. "Opening communication channels," announced a technician, "broadcasting on all frequencies and formats." Tahoe straightened his uniform and stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried an unmistakable authority. "Attention unknown vessels. This is Admiral Tahoe of the United Systems Alliance. You are approaching protected space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." For several long moments, there was no response. Then, A signal came through, strange, crystalline tones that the translation matrix took several seconds to process. "We are the Kyre," came the translated voice, sounding oddly musical. "We reclaim what was once ours. Your species were not present when we left. You occupy our worlds. These worlds belong to their current inhabitants." Tahoe replied, "We are willing to discuss peaceful coexistence, but we will defend our territory and our allies." "Allies?" The crystalline voice seemed confused by the concept. "Our scans detect multiple species working together. This is unexpected. A lot has changed in 10,000 years, Tahoe said. The old ways of conquest no longer apply here." Another pause, longer this time. The crystalline ships remained motionless, surrounded by the Allied fleet. "Your defensive position was established before our arrival," the Kyre voice finally observed. "You anticipated us." Tahoe allowed himself a small smile. "We've been expecting you." On the command center screens, Hanjin could see additional ships moving into position, vessels from every allied species, forming a second defensive layer behind the human-led front line. The message was clear. This was not one civilization standing against the Kyre, but many, united in common defense. The Kyre transmission came again, the musical voice now carrying a note of what might have been respect. "We will consider your offer of discussion. We have much to learn about how the galaxy has changed in our absence." As the transmission ended, Hanjin turned to Tahoe. "You knew they were coming. All along, you knew." Tahoe nodded. "We detected their awakening 3 years ago. It's why we accelerated our contact with your Confederation. We knew what was coming, and we knew neither of us could face it alone." Minho's scales flickered with understanding. "The treaty tomorrow. The alliance of 23 species. It was all preparation for this moment." "Partly," Tahoe acknowledged. "But it's about more than just the Kyre. It's about what comes after them, and after that. The galaxy is vast, but not infinite. Sooner or later, we all have to learn to share it." As they watched the screens, where the standoff continued in the silence of space, Hanjin reflected on how much had changed. 6 cycles ago, he had been a mid-level intelligence officer worried about a single human ship. Now he stood in the command center of an orbital platform around the human homeworld, watching as a united fleet of former enemies faced a threat from legend. "Will they attack?" he asked quietly. Tahoe shook his head. "I don't think so. Not today. They're smart enough to recognize the situation, and we're smart enough to offer them a place in the Alliance if they're willing to accept the terms." "And if they're not?" Minho asked. Admiral Tahoe's expression hardened slightly. "Then they'll learn what we've been teaching the galaxy for the past 6 cycles, that true strength comes not from conquest, but from cooperation, and that humans and their allies protect their own." As the crystalline ships began to power down their weapon systems, Hanjin felt a strange sense of completion. The battle that wasn't, that day 6 cycles ago, when humanity could have destroyed the Telbar fleet but chose not to, had led to this moment, when the combined might of 23 united species stood ready to welcome a new member to their alliance or defend against a new enemy. Either way, the old galactic order was gone forever. And the new one, built on the unexpected mercy of a species forged in fire, promised something better.